All right, welcome into the Paul Farrington Show, a reaction to Week 18 of the NFL season. One game left. We got the Steelers, we got the Ravens for one final playoff spot in the AFC North. Just Paul today. We'll have Jack and Ziggy. Zach, everyone will be back later this week. Jack's recovering from the flu, so in a sense, his flu game tonight with Ravens Steelers. He seemed pretty pessimistic throughout the week, but all of a sudden today, as you know with Jack, as he typically does, he has found a way to convince himself that the Steelers, I believe, will be routing the Ravens tonight. So hopefully, maybe even tonight, if we do an instant reaction, we'll see. Zoom him in or something like that. But a lot to talk about here. And first off, hope everyone had a great Happy New Year, right? Merry Christmas, Happy Holiday Season. We've been a little sporadic with our recordings lately, so will be fun to get back into everything with the playoffs. I mean, right around the corner now. And we got the rematch that we wanted, at least here with the NFC North people. Packers-Bears will be playing in the wild card round. I think both teams actually view this as a win. I know that the Bears didn't win the game against Detroit to get it, but it's that Wario meme that Ziggy shoots out sometimes. We've lost, but at no cost, as the Bears are still the number 2 seed. And first, before even getting into the Bears-Packers rematch or even the two NFC North games today, because as we all know, we all saw the Vikings, belt to ass on the Packers today. I had some fun joking around with some Packer fans on Twitter, and appreciate everybody here who's jumping in to the comment section right now. I'll get to the super chats at the end if you leave it. I don't know what the Philadelphia Eagles were doing, guys. No idea. You saw, and if you could go back to the prediction, the Week 18 prediction episode, when Ziggy told me that they were resting their starters, I was shocked, because you had to imagine, if you're an Eagles fan, you're an Eagles coach, you're thinking the Lions can win this game in Chicago. I know that Detroit's been struggling and Chicago is the 2 seed, but I don't think on paper people thought that the Bears are that much better than the Lions. And in the event that the Lions were to win, the Eagles beat the Commanders and you're the 2 seed. And it was, and that matters, at least when I'm thinking it through. The Eagles had an opportunity here with the Lions actually winning where they can host multiple playoff games. If they win round 1, right now they get the Rams. Of all teams, you get the Rams. Even if they win that game, they're going to have to go in all likelihood to Chicago if the Bears hold true against the Packers. So it just didn't make sense to me that you would sacrifice that seeding when there was a very likely possibility that you could actually jump ahead of Chicago and host that playoff game. You saw how important it was to them last year when they went to the Super Bowl, right? They wound up hosting the NFC Championship game as the 2 seed. So I thought it was a loser mentality. I understand not wanting people to get injured, especially in Week 18 of the season, but you're trying to repeat as champions. You should be playing for that 2 seed. And even if it's a matter of activating the guys for a half and monitoring the Lions-Bears game, right? When you see Detroit's up 16-0, imagine if they have Hurts and Barkley, everyone playing, right? You could pedal to the metal. You're going to beat the crap out of the Commanders. Probably had those guys resting in the fourth quarter anyway. Just very confusing to me. I really thought that it was lame from Philadelphia and just not a competitive move. I thought it was also a little bit lame from the Chargers, who, unless I'm mistaken, I thought they had the opportunity where they could have jumped. They could have jumped to Buffalo, who is now a game ahead of them. So now you have the Chargers. I'm assuming this is correct here, right? You're going to have the Chargers going to New England next week instead of going to Jacksonville. I'd much rather play the Jaguars than the Patriots. And another thing with the Chargers here, and I get they were playing Denver, and you're in Denver, tough place to win regardless. The Bills are the 7 seed. There was a situation, I think everyone can agree there's a situation that can take shape where if the Chargers were to make it to the AFC Championship game as the 6 seed, a lot of people think Buffalo can go on a run. If those two teams wind up playing each other and it's in Buffalo now as opposed to in LA, I'm not picking the Chargers to win that game in snowy Buffalo with that crowd, with that energy. Same thing with the Eagles, right? The Eagles have that crazy home field advantage. You want those games at home. And sometimes it's just as important about not being in another crazy environment as it is being able to host your environment. So I thought it was just a really... I get people are saying here the Chargers got whacked by the Jaguars earlier. I still think New England's a better team. So I just didn't like some of the decisions that were around the league today to rest guys and and not try and improve your seeding. And we'll see if it costs teams. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it will wind up being pointless. But to me, it's just I like Sean Payton said he was treating it as a playoff game today. Of course, they were going for the 1 seed, but if Philly winds up going to Chicago, we'll see what happens. We'll see what winds up happening there. But the game that the game that a lot of people who listen to the show were focusing on was what was going to happen with Bears Lions. And Chicago comes out extremely sluggish, right? They're down 13-0 at halftime. They're down 16-0 at one point. And then they just have this ability, and it's a really fun ability. When they turn it on, they really turn it on. And Caleb's on the move, rifling passes. Cole Kmet and Colston Loveland were both unbelievable today. The catch from Cole Kmet, taking that hit in his back, I think it was on the 2-point conversion. Just an amazing performance by the two of them. Obviously, Swift and Monangai. Swift had the awesome cut on the touchdown run that set up the game-tying 2-point conversion by Kmet. When Chicago's feeling it, they are feeling it. But I think what a lot of Packers fans who wanted to play the Bears instead of the Eagles, what you noticed was, right, in that first half, when they're off, when they're sluggish, they are a very beatable 2 seed. Now, I don't want Chicago fans jumping down my throat saying, you've given us no respect all year, Paul. Of course you're not giving it to us now. I think the Bears are very good. I think I've been more respectful and more admirable of the Bears than most people. I just think that they are a more beatable team, right? I think they're a more beatable team than a lot of Bears fans might give them credit to. And in this Packers-Bears rematch, we just saw a couple weeks ago, Green Bay dominated that game where the Bears were able to have that magical ending, recover the onside kick. That's why I'd feel pretty good if I'm a Packer fan about this matchup. Instead of going into Philly, a place where you seem to always lose, that defense has been playing good football. I think that Green Bay feels a little bit better in this situation. Getting Jordan Love back, right, who's going to be healthy. He's had multiple weeks off now. Not too worried about him getting into a rhythm immediately in the game here. So at the same time, I also think the Bears would much rather be playing the Packers than they would being the 3 seed and having to go up against, I believe it would be San Francisco, right? Yeah, San Francisco would have been the 6 seed. So both these teams, even though they both lost today, both got the outcome they wanted. It's kind of weird, the Packers have lost 4 games in a row and they're staying in a position where they feel somewhat comfortable with this playoff game in Chicago. But it's gonna be sensational. Of course, I'm a little jaded about what's going on with the Vikings, but I cannot wait. Of all the games that we're going to get this weekend or this upcoming weekend, Packers-Bears rematch right after that thrilling overtime game in Chicago with that fan base. It's gonna be rocking. Soldier Field, if you can go to that game, I know we have a lot of people listening in the Midwest. I'm almost tempted to fly out there and stay with some of my Chicago friends and just go to the game for fun. Like, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be the game of the weekend when you have this rivalry in this setting. I can't remember the last time they played in the playoffs. I have to imagine it was the NFC Championship game back in 2010. But now, like, both teams think they can win. Both fan bases feel they can win. Maybe I'll put out a poll here because I know Packers fans have been really upset for a while now about the state of the team. Let's see. Who will win next weekend? See what the poll says. Packers, Bears. Because Packers fans have been so upset for a while. And I get it. You haven't won a football game in a month. But all of a sudden now it seems like there's a little bit of life back. And this is a team that obviously the Micah Parsons injury took a lot out. Andy talked with Ziggy and I and said which NFC North team was had the most disappointing season, which fan base is probably the most depressed. And I said it should be the Packers because they were the team that had Super Bowl expectations, even beyond Detroit at various stages of this season. And to have it stripped away, not faded away because of your own performance like the Lions, to have it stripped away, taken away the way it felt like with Micah and a lot of the injuries, all of a sudden that feeling seems to be shifting right now among the Packer fan base. I see here Lava Truck says Lions most depressed. Obviously, it was a depressing season for Detroit as well. And you got to give them credit for always battling. This is a team that no matter what the circumstances are, they're playing their hardest, and they went into Chicago, a place where a lot of people have struggled this year. A lot of teams have lost in Soldier Field, and then to have Chicago respond the way they did, to go on that drive at the end and kick the game-winning field goal. Jared Goff, I thought he had an up and down day, but he finished with 330 passing yards, makes the big throw to Amon-Ra St. Brown. They kick the game winner. It feels horrible as a Viking fan and as a Lion fan that we're just sitting here both 9-8, half a game out of being in the playoffs. Just a really sad year for both of us. But I can't wait for Chicago and Green Bay. If I'm the Bears, as opposed to the first game, got to think we're going to see a lot of Kyle Monangai and a lot of DeAndre Swift after the performance that the Ravens had on the ground against Green Bay. I thought Jordan Mason ran well today for the Vikings as well. Granted, against backups. I know whenever I talk about this Packer-Viking game, it was all backups on the field. But it's just going to be great. It's going to be a really great weekend of football here in Seattle. So, look, I'm looking at the standings right now. Seattle, the 1 seed in the NFC. This is exactly what I was talking about when I was arguing with Ziggy. And I know there's a lot of people in here who were pro 49ers. A lot of people were upset that I'm a little anti-Brock Purdy. And I'm trying not to be anti-Brock. I think, list him off. I think he's probably about the 14th best quarterback in the NFL right now, somewhere in that 12 to 16 range. So I'd say he's a little bit above average because you get some of those unbelievable games like you had against Chicago, and then you have some clunker games like early in the season when he played Jacksonville. Last year, when everyone was hurt, I didn't think Brock was good enough to elevate the 49ers. But when they're healthy, he's a very capable quarterback. He can win a Super Bowl. But last night, you saw the big difference between Seattle and San Francisco. And it's that Seattle defense is absolutely ferocious. Sorry about that. That Seattle defense is just absolutely ferocious. And a 49ers team that had been red hot. They had scored, 37, 48, 42 the previous 3 weeks. All big wins. To be held to 3, that's impressive stuff. And you have to go into Seattle now. You have the 12th man. Sam's probably a little more comfortable at home, right? It's not like the offense exploded with only 13 points, although they did outgain them 361 to 173, dominated time of possession. That's San Francisco defense. It just isn't very good. And that was one spot where if you were Chicago and had them coming in, you'd feel good about your ability to move the ball on them. Just be a matter of, can you get some stops on Purdy, which they couldn't do on Sunday Night Football a week ago. But Seattle right now, I think you look at them in the NFC, and it's hard not to say they shouldn't be the favorite. I like the Rams. I've been a big Ram guy all season long, and you have to like that path for LA going to Carolina, and then in all likelihood, you're probably, I don't know. It depends if you think the Packers or the Bears are going to win, but you like the Rams to win that first round game, and it feels like those two, Seattle and LA, are on a collision course again. And look, when they played in Seattle just a few weeks ago, the Rams dominated that game. It was similar to the Packers-Bears game from a couple weeks ago as well, in that Green Bay controlled most of that. But there was some magic at the end for Chicago. There was some magic at the end for Seattle. Punt return touchdown. The Rams, I think, missed a field goal as well. And all of a sudden, a game that you think is dominated by one team turns into a loss. And it's changed everything, right? Because now the Bears are the 2 seed, Seattle's the 1 seed. If you flip those games, we're looking at LA as the 1 and Green Bay as the 2. So they obviously had massive implications as well for the seeding. But that changes the way a lot of people are thinking about these teams going into the playoffs, where I'm kind of inclined to still lean the Rams as the favorite. But Seattle, I feel happy for Sam too. Because when you have back-to-back years being 14-3, and there was a very good chance you were going to have to go on the road again, and that's just crazy. Sam Darnold's won 28 regular season. Guys, 28 regular season games Sam Darnold's won the last 2 years. And it makes me sick to my stomach. I'm not going to lie. I am so... When you're watching JJ McCarthy exit the game again, and yes, I know he went in, he had a hand injury, toughed it out, but you see him leave the game again in the third quarter. I'm sorry to turn this to a Vikings rant real quick, but it's very upsetting to me. Half the games he's played in this year, he's left. And you look, over in Seattle, Sam's 14-3, they're the 1 seed. With the way the Vikings defense has played and the way that they've closed the year winning 5 in a row, destroying their draft stock after being 4-8, you can't help but think if Sam Darnold were here that would be us. I just can't imagine a world where we're not in the playoffs if we have Sam Darnold. And not just in the playoffs, but being a very dangerous playoff team. As we've gotten a lot healthier, I know Grenard's out, but as we've gotten healthier towards the end of the season, Van Ginkel's playing out of his mind. It's just, it's a travesty. And I have no idea what they're going to do. Because someone said earlier in the comment section here, they said, I actually didn't take a long look, so this has nothing to do with it. I'm sorry. If a teacher teaches a mystery, what did you learn if the mystery taught is still a mystery to you? Nothing at all. I don't really know what that means, but the general theme of it, we learned nothing about JJ McCarthy. We know very little about JJ McCarthy as far as whether or not he should be the guy next year. If they had closed on a 5-game winning streak and you felt comfortable about JJ moving forward, had a couple 250-yard games in there, some big-time touchdown performances, Jefferson got more involved, you'd be able to sit back and go, okay, we can build on this. Like, this can be the guy. But now we're winning games with -3 net passing yards. Max Brosmer's in half of them. We're still winning, destroying the draft stock, destroying our standing in the division for next season. So now we play the Colts, the Rams, and the Commanders instead of the Giants, the Titans, and the Cardinals, which could be a 2 or 3 game difference. It's just horrible, and I don't think I can go into next year with just JJ in that QB room. There needs to be a competition. He needs to win it out. I don't care if people say that might be bad for his development. Whatever. If he can't beat out whoever we bring in, then he shouldn't be the quarterback next year. Frankly, that's what it is, because this team is clearly good enough to win. O'Connell did a nice job getting them to 9-8. But man, that decision to go with JJ looms very large over the entire organization, and it will for a very long time, dependent on what Sam Darnold does over the next few years here in Seattle, because you had a franchise quarterback and you had someone who at least looks like he can be a franchise quarterback. No, I just have no idea what they're going to do this offseason. And someone needs to be held accountable if that decision costs them next season as well. And it'll probably be Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, who I've said I wouldn't put his job in jeopardy this offseason, but next year's the year where, look, they got to hit. Fries, Kelly, Hargrave, Allen didn't work out, or at least hasn't worked out. And you're paying those guys a lot of money. Not good. It's really not good. I'm going to get back to the Packers and Bears here in a little bit. I'm just bouncing around. So a pretty interesting situation today where the Saints and the Falcons, right, are playing in this game to determine the fate of both of their rivals, the Panthers and the Buccaneers in the NFC South. And there was the great video of Baker Mayfield on his couch, just totally locked in on the game, cheering on the Saints. It might be similar to me when they asked Baker Mayfield, Baker, you hate the Saints. Like, are you going to root for them? And he said, well, if they tie, we can still get in. I thought that was just a fantastic response from Baker. And probably what I would have said as well, as a Viking fan who hates New Orleans and roots for their eternal misery. But ultimately, he should have rooted a little bit harder, because the Falcons win 19-17, and it puts the Panthers into the playoffs, a team that it's fitting for Carolina to be in the playoffs to me. It's not more exciting than Tampa Bay. We'd much rather be getting Tampa and the Rams next weekend than the Carolina Rams rematch. It's just, the Panthers are not fun. They're not a fun team to watch. At least with Tampa Bay, you get Baker hosting a game. You get Mike Evans, another playoff shot. Those teams have played in the playoffs, right? You get that rematch as opposed to the regular season Panthers-Rams rematch, which somehow the Panthers won. But Carolina seems fitting because that's just the team they've been all year, right? You look at them and you go, how the hell are they here? You don't really trust Bryce Young in terms of giving him an extension this offseason, so we're going to see him in his 5th year playing for a contract extension. But, they won a really crappy division. They're going to host a playoff game against the team they beat. So, props to Carolina, I guess, who also lost the game, right? We're looking at 3 teams now in the Packers, the Panthers, and the Bears who have all been losing and still finding their way into the beneficial position. So, just one thing about that game, and it's been bothering me for a couple weeks now, the officiating on some situations recently has just been out of control. Where you have Tommy Tremble's helmet ripped off yesterday afternoon on a crucial play in that game where the Panthers could use that 15 yards, get the automatic first down. Couple plays later, you have the situation where Bryce throws the backwards pass. They rule it incomplete. Then they come back and say, actually, no, it was backwards and thrown out of bounds, even though Rico Dowdle picked it up and looked like he had room to run. And all of a sudden, you set the Panthers back 6 yards. They miss a field goal on that drive. Like, I just don't understand when you have plays that obvious. You had the Ravens-Patriots pass interference play a couple weeks ago where Marlon Humphrey basically tackled, I think it was, oh my gosh, Booty. I think it was Booty. And everyone in the world was waiting for the flag to come in. In the Seattle Rams game, I know people have disagreed with me on the 2-point conversion where Zach Charbonnet goes and picks the ball up. It's not an immediate recovery to me. Zach Charbonnet takes a couple steps over, casually picks up the ball. Rams players are walking off the field and they say, okay, 2-point conversion's good. There's just been a lot of big time calls that we have not gotten great explanations on. And when it's so obvious that it's wrong, I don't know. The rules might not, I get that the rules are the rules right now. Feels like this is something that needs to be addressed in the offseason if New York calls in and fixes it, because I thought it's just absolute bullshit what happened to Carolina yesterday. So in a sense, I am retired. I'm not retired. I'm reading the comment here. In a sense, I am happy that Carolina got in because while, yeah, maybe it didn't completely impact the end of the game or like totally, it wasn't a last play of the game situation. Felt like they were getting hosed a couple times towards the end of that. Yeah, it's just been ridiculous. Carolina is the dark horse from Richard. I don't know if I'd say Carolina is a dark horse. There's just not enough on the offensive end to me. And Rico Dowdle hasn't put on his Superman cape for a number of weeks now. But I don't know. Sometimes when you have that magic, you have that magic. And I thought Chicago was going to have that again today when they had the interception and an opportunity to go win the football game. Obviously, the Lions get the ball back and they do it. But all right, let's take a look at some of these super chats here as we're getting closer to Steelers and Ravens, which maybe we'll have a reaction to that as well. Some of the super chats from Demise. Bears saw one game of Colin Oliver and Baron Sorrell and Diggs. I don't even know. Oh, and tried to duck. Yeah, tried to duck the Packers. Yeah, I don't know about that. Jorge Martinez. The way the Bears play is not sustainable at all. I think they are a year or two too early. Been saying for a long time, Packers winning next week. And I don't think that's a crazy thing to say, Jorge. That's what I was trying to say earlier in the show. Would it surprise me if the Bears won it all? No. Would it surprise me if the Bears went to the Super Bowl? Honestly, no. I think that they are a talented enough team, and when they do turn the ball over, which they've done all season long, and the defense can get off the field, I mean, that offense is more than capable of carrying them. It's just a matter of everything clicking at once, and you're right, they're relying on things that aren't sustainable, but they have been so far. So to just rule it out and say, oh, like they're not going to get turnovers next week against Green Bay, who doesn't really turn the ball over. When they played, they did, right? Josh Jacobs fumbled on the 3-yard line in that game. That was a massive play. The Bears have been doing it all year long, so I'm not going to just say, they can't do it again. But I agree with you. It's something that you have to keep an eye on. And if they don't get a turnover, would I be surprised if the Packers walked up and down the field all day the way they did the first time or in the second game? No, I wouldn't. But that's what makes it a really entertaining matchup is there's a lot of variables in play here that you just can't be certain of. The one that I probably trust the most is I think the Bears are going to have a lot of success on the ground if they choose to do it, more than they did in that second game they played. Chris Schwint has been a member for a month. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. He says, "Go Pack Go," which everybody seems to be good at making me say that on this channel. From the Cellarist, he says, Bears. Hold on, I'm trying to get out of this. He says, Bears are so bad, got swept by the Lions in the worst season in 3 years. Yeah, I mean, when they played Detroit in Detroit, they got worked. I don't look at the early weeks of the season maybe as much as I should, including in college football, clearly. Maybe I just don't care that much about what happened in week 1 or week 2 as opposed to what's happening right now. I react a lot to the recent events and how teams look in this moment. And right now, Bears and Lions are very close. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bears won if they played again in a week. So I'm not going to say they're so bad, but Definitely the Packers can win. I'm assuming you're a Packers fan. Jorge Martinez again. I think it's crazy the Vikings are half a game. Oh, dude, yeah. I think it's crazy the Vikings are half a game behind us, but I swear the Vikings have been horrible all year. Respectfully, though. Sucks JJ got hurt. Yeah, you're preaching to the choir right here. I got my good friend Hayden, who, is a good friend of our good friend Tom Monroe and our good friend Michael Manning. We have a group chat. It's mostly Notre Dame football we're reacting to. But Hayden and Michael are big Patriots fans. Tom's a big Lions fan, as everyone knows, and I root for the Vikings. And Hayden sent the exact same message to both me and Tom after the game. So he said, great season, Paul. Kind of shocked you guys went 9-8. Same thing to Tom and the Lions. Great season, Tom. Kind of shocked you guys went 9-8. And it really is the truth, where the Vikings have just been miserable. I said it on the show earlier this week. If you were to put out a list of maybe the top 5, top 10 most miserable teams in the league this year, you asked the casual fan who the 10 worst teams were, you'd go, okay, we know the Browns were a nightmare. Obviously, the Jets and the Giants. Man, the Jets. The Jets right now could be competing for the worst team ever. The team they have on the field right now could be the worst team in the history of football. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if you had like the Canton Bulldogs thrown on the field against them and pushed them around. Ran right through them. I don't even know if the Canton Bulldogs were throwing the football, but it's hard to see this Jets team winning a game. Oh my gosh, it is brutal. You'd say the Giants, you'd say the Jets. We know the Titans are bad, and then everybody would probably go, oh yeah, doesn't McCarthy stink? Like, the Vikings have to be horrible. No. Somehow they're 9-8. Somehow they're not. They've won 5 in a row. Somehow they've destroyed all the benefits of losing for next year. I guess you have to, if you're trying to be optimistic, and we know I've tried optimistic, Paul. If you're trying to be optimistic, you go, okay, at least you keep the culture intact. Right? Jefferson's a little happier. You send off Harrison Smith the right way. Winning's really hard, and winning does have, it does cure all. But it doesn't cure the quarterback position. So, same to be said about the Lions, though. They're 9-8. You're thinking Super Bowl, and here you are, last in your division. And I don't know if going into next year, I'm not sure I'd say the Lions crack the top 2. You're probably thinking the Bears and Packers are the teams to beat in the NFC North next year. And the Lions are going to have to prove it before. Can they do it? Yes. But before you believe in them, anything close to what you did earlier this season. Demise. By the way, in all seriousness, the Packers D-line had their best day since Micah got hurt. Gary should be short, and I don't care how much he is getting paid. Yeah, Look, I'm not putting too much stock into the Packers' performance today, just because they, they had all the guys out. Demise. In my opinion, Brock being ranked anywhere 8 to 16 is respectable. I'd have him around 12 personally. Any hate on a ranking in that range is kind of weird in my opinion. Thank you. That's what I'm saying. If calling him 8th to 16th best quarterback, I mean, that's a broad range, but Brock Purdy's ceiling, he can play like a top 5 quarterback. I think what you typically get from him is that 12 to 16 if you're going to sign up for a season. I know he's very good for what Kyle Shanahan does, and when everyone's healthy and everything's clicking, that offense is very dangerous. But I mean, think about it, guys. If you were to rank the quarterbacks in the playoffs right now in the NFC, I would take Darnold over him. I would take Love over him. I would take Stafford over him. I would take him over Bryce. And then you have Caleb and Jalen Hurts. And those are two guys that it's kind of a toss-up. You could take Caleb Williams over Brock Purdy, and I wouldn't say you're crazy. You could take Jalen Hurts, and I wouldn't say you're crazy. I'd probably lean Brock over Jalen. I think I might take Caleb, though. This is what I'm saying, though. If we're talking about this guy like he's a top 10 QB, top 7, whatever, the way Ziggy has lately, these are no-brainers, but it's not to me. And if you're going to be in the loop with Caleb and with Jalen, that's probably in the 12 to 16, or some people really don't like Jalen Hurts. That's just what I'm saying here. The Celeris. Hold on. I lost it for a second. Let me pull that back up. The Celerus says, oh my gosh. Hold on. Here we go. And then we'll get to the poll is not very close. Not a surprise. The Celerus, low-key feel bad for Vikings fans as a Lion fan, letting Darnold, Jones, and Rodgers walk for bum Michigan handoff merchant. Yeah, I kind of hope in some ways that Rodgers could be the Vikings quarterback next year, depending what happens with the Steelers here. I guess we'll see what happens tonight in this Pittsburgh-Baltimore game. If the Steelers win, maybe there's a world he winds up coming back. If they lose, I can see them cutting ties and wanting to go somewhere else next year, in which case I think Rodgers is going to play another season. Minnesota might be a destination where he fits into. But that's another weird one where it would feel like a benching of McCarthy, because Rodgers is not coming in to win that job, right? If you bring in a guy, I'm just throwing out names, right? If you just bring in a guy like Malik Willis or Mac Jones, whoever it might be, there's more of a competition there. It's an open competition. If you bring in Rodgers, McCarthy is on the bench until it's either a complete disaster or Aaron gets hurt. So I at the very least think that with Rodgers, the Vikings could be a really good team next year. I could see them having a Favre-esque season with him. And I want to win. But, this is the whole reason the Vikings picked McCarthy anyway. It's because I think that what actually wound up happening with the decision to go with JJ, I'd imagine, is the Vikings felt like their hand was forced with JJ. Or at least they became obsessed with the thought of JJ being the guy on the rookie deal. And Sam's last two games were so bad that it helped justify that obsession of, all right, we can win with this guy. O'Connell can develop anyone. We're going to go with him. My dream is Lamar Burrow. I want the Ravens to lose, so Lamar's more upset. I want Burrow to be upset, and I want them out, and Minnesota makes sense. Rich Harris, I won the Paul F. Pigskin Pick'em League. Hoot, hoot. Congratulations. That's, I'm assuming that is you. Oh, Rick. I'm assuming that this is Rickster. So congratulations, Rick, on winning the Pick'em League. You've been on fire all year. I don't know how you're this consistent with your predictions. If you were gambling on it, I'm sure you made a lot of money. And congrats to anyone. Our buddy Kyle Rubin went 18 for 18 on his survivor pool this year. My dad lost on it. He switched from the Vikings to the Bengals today, last moment. And you see of course, the Browns wind up winning that game, and the Vikings. I told him, I said, look, if you'd picked the Vikings, they would have lost. Midwest Mountain Man, member for 20 months. Jeez, that's a long time. Appreciate that a lot. Paul, has the performance of the SEC... Oh. Rage bait, Midwest Mountain Man. Paul, has the performance of the SEC teams in the CFB playoffs sufficiently demonstrated that Notre Dame deserved to be left out? What? What do you mean? The performance of everyone in the playoff, to me, has made me feel validated in my opinion that Notre Dame should be in. I like Miami. Miami's a good football team. It doesn't change my opinion that Notre Dame should have been in over them, how far they're going. I'll say this quickly because I know people don't want to listen to this, but maybe they like seeing someone upset and reacting to something. I said the entire time, we could go back and watch the videos, Alabama was a bad football team at the end of the year. And Oklahoma rode the coattails of Alabama being a bad football team because they beat them, right? They rode the coattails of the Bama bias and got into the playoff and were safely in as the 8 seed with no questions, right? Even though that they don't really have a great resume or great statistics, especially on offense. I know the defense was good. They rode that into the playoff. So was I surprised that Bama won against Oklahoma? No. Bama threw a bunch of interceptions the first time. They should have beat them the first time they played. It was an outlier game for Oklahoma. Oklahoma should have lost. Oklahoma would have been out. But Alabama goes in there and wins. Then they get their doors blasted by Indiana. And that's exactly what you thought was going to happen. I think the SEC's been pretty bad. The only teams that the SEC's beating are, the Tulane JMU or each other. They're losing to everyone else. All the other, Tennessee lost, right? Iowa beat Vanderbilt. Like, the SEC had a down year. It was ridiculous that they had, 5 teams get in? They were arguing for a 6th team in Texas. It was just insanity to me that you had 5 teams from the SEC this season get in. Whatever. I understand that a lot of people don't care about this. But, yeah, I think the SEC had a down year, did not deserve 5 teams. I think the bowl games in the playoff have kind of showed that. Now, look, Ole Miss, I'm really enjoying their run. I've watched very little of the playoff because I'm out of protest almost, but I tuned into the end of Ole Miss Georgia, not gonna lie, and I think Ole Miss. Look, I'd love to see them go on a run. Love to see them win it all. It's a cool story with the way that ended with Kiffin. But no, I haven't been impressed with the SEC. Demai says, my point with the Gary comment was more just give the rookies a chance. Rashawn does nothing to help us win right now. It sucks we paid him a ton, but we got to try something. Okay, yeah, that clears up a little bit. And you're going to need him to really have a big game next week. Gary needs to show up without Micah. Caleb, as we know, one of the hardest guys in the league to bring down. And he's just, Brady said it. We've been praising it all year. He's got that superpower in elusivity, his ability to get out of the pocket. And he's had it since college, right? I remember watching him in Notre Dame USC games, which unfortunately it all goes back to Notre Dame. Unfortunately, that rivalry is over for right now. I'd like to get to a point where we could get that back. But when we went there, the year he won the Heisman at USC, I remember watching him going like, holy crap, we can't bring this guy down. We can't even get close to him. It seems like even if you have someone, and then even the times when he did have a free rusher on him, he's ducking. It's the dodgeball, right? He's ducking, dipping, diving, dodging again. And it's an amazing ability. And it's one that when you're able to sort of get him under control and keep his eyes downfield and not get out of control, he's able to make these big plays happen. And I thought today you actually saw a great moment in the maturity of Caleb Williams when the snap went over his head in the fourth quarter, or he dropped the snap, ball bounces back 10 yards, and he picked it up. Aiden Hutchinson basically had a free run at him, but he had a moment, took a beat, threw it away, kept the drive alive. Those were the plays last year where Caleb, and even earlier this year, where Caleb would have panicked, gotten sacked, maybe takes a safety, drops the football. You've seen him calm down a lot more. And when you get the performances like you had against San Francisco, that's when you say, oh, holy crap, the Bears are going to be a problem for a long time. And I can't wait for the rematch next week. Like I was saying, if someone didn't tune in to hear College and Notre Dame whining, bye-bye, Paulie. Yeah, look, Mark, yeah, I understand a lot of people don't want to listen to the Notre Dame stuff, so I tried to get it through quickly. So the poll came back, 79% Packers, 21% Bears. For who do you think is going to win next weekend? Safe to say it seems the Packers fans have gotten a little bit of juice back. The Bears fans are going to be firing out too, so it should be a great game. And briefly here, I didn't talk about, I know it's in the title here, the Broncos are the 1 seed in the AFC, which, as you know, my distaste for Sean Payton, given the Saints-Vikings history from the 2009 NFC Championship game, not particularly happy about that. I favor the Patriots in the AFC. That's who I would pick if gun to my head right now, and it actually works out nicely for them. I think that New England fans would much rather play the Chargers than have Buffalo go in there, a team that just beat them in New England, albeit you had the big lead, but Buffalo did make that comeback. You want to avoid Josh Allen as long as you can here. And you've probably set yourself up where at the very least, right, you're going to be able to save him for the second round. And that'll be a fun game. If you're able to get by the Chargers, you have the Bills and Patriots in round 2. That'll be a lot of fun. But I like New England. The way May has been playing he's just been great. And I like the defense of Vrabel. I was talking with my uncle today. He said, what 4 coaches would you put, or like on the Mount Rushmore coaches right now? And you can include age as a factor. Like, who would you want for your organization? And I said I would go with McVay, Shanahan, Andy Reid, and Sean Payton right now. And Andy Reid, we'll see. Like, I know he's 66 years old, so maybe you replace him. But Mike Vrabel is on that short list of guys right after. The job he's done to turn this team around. Really, all the teams that we're seeing in the playoffs, a lot of the teams, at least in the AFC. Sean Payton turned around the Broncos a couple of years. Vrabel in New England took 1 year. Liam Cohen in Jacksonville took 1 year right here. Jim Harbaugh did it pretty quickly with the Chargers. McDonald's done a really nice job with Seattle. Ben Johnson in Chicago. I don't know if I want to say the Panthers really turned it around completely, but there's been a lot of impressive turnaround stories where you look at the division winners, and at the start of the year, if I told you these were the teams that were going to win their divisions and host playoff games, that parlay, I wonder what that parlay would have paid out. I'm sure that someone will tweet it after the game. I'm sure there's a couple people who had it and are rooting like crazy for Pittsburgh or Baltimore tonight. But Denver being the 1 seed is critical. I don't think they'd be able to go on the road and win multiple games. So at 14-3 here, in that stadium, they're a tough team to beat. And just watch the Elway documentary too, which was a lot of fun. So I don't believe in Denver. I don't think Bo Nix is going to be able to get it done. I trust almost every other quarterback in the playoffs right now more than him. Maybe not Stroud. But look, they're the 1 seed, and you got to respect the 1 seed to a degree. So, all right, I'm going to get ready to watch the Ravens and the Steeler game here. Probably going to do maybe going to do a reaction. We'll see how good that game is. And then, of course, we'll have Ziggy, we'll have Jack back later this week. We'll do our show with Andy, which I'm sure will be a lot of Bears-Packers preview. But congratulations to all you guys. I know a lot of Bears fans in here. You lost the game today, but you got the 2 seed. And look, that really can be the difference. If you're able to get by Green Bay and you get Philly in that second round, that to me is the difference. I would pick you to lose in Philadelphia, hosting that team, a team you beat earlier in the year. I think I'd pick, the Bears have a very good chance to go to the NFC Championship game, where if they're playing Seattle, I mean, anything can happen. Let me just see. So assuming, what will the path be? Let's pretend the Bears beat Green Bay, Seattle has the bye, Philly wins. Yeah, then you could even host it, because I'd probably pick the Rams to beat Seattle. So the path to the Super Bowl could very well go through Chicago right now. Sheesh. And the Packers would what? They'd go to Seattle afterwards, and then they'd get the Rams-Eagles winner, assuming Philly beats San Francisco. So it's amazing. The path is there. You can draw a path up for really anyone. I just can't see Carolina going on a run in the NFC. And in the AFC, I honestly can see most of them. I think all of them have an opportunity. That's what's going to be really fun about this playoffs. Like last year we had Bills-Broncos, I believe, right? And it's the 40-point game where Knicks was horrible. This year's a different story. This year, it really does feel like anyone can win. So, Henry already with a huge one. All right, I'm going to get ready for that game. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. We had, close to 400 people, over 300 the entire time on a day where not a lot happened for the teams as far as things changing. So, we're going to have a great week. The playoff run is going to be awesome. If you guys haven't subscribed to the channel, would really appreciate it if you did, as we're trying to get to 30,000 by the end of the year. That's a goal that we set out for early in the year that we're very, very close to. And we, of course, Ziggy, Jack, Zach, we appreciate everyone so much for tuning into this show and giving us your time. So I hope everyone had a very happy New Year, and let's enjoy this final game of the regular season here. It's going to be a good one.